be some retakes. There's going to be a little bit of a scripted section because after today, this will actually air on the Interchange podcast feed. So if you didn't catch it or you want to share it with other folks at your companies, you'll have the ability to do that in the coming weeks. So give me one moment to get set up here. I'll also say that after we sort of finish the podcast, it'll kind of be one contained unit. You'll know when I'm starting and stopping. And then we will have time, hopefully, for some questions. And that'll be more the typical way we've done questions on all our panels, so please remember to submit those at gtm.cnf.io. Okay. My computer would like to let me in. That would be helpful. Okay. All right, so here goes. LoanPal has seen phenomenal growth since it burst onto the scene in January 2018. According to Wood Mackenzie Power and Renewables, LoanPal was the second largest residential solar loan provider in the US last year, with 20% market share in that space. Now, according to LoanPal's latest market data, the company appears to have claimed the title of #1 solar financier in the US. So I'm Julia Pyper, contributing editor at Greentech Media, and I'm here on stage at GTM Solar Summit with LoanPal's founder and CEO, Hayess Barnard. Hayess, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, over the course of this conversation, we're going to dig into what LoanPal is all about, talk about your rapid growth. We're also going to reflect back a little bit on your time at Solar City as Chief Revenue Officer there, where you oversaw a team of nearly 10,000 people. And you were there roughly up until the Tesla acquisition. First, though, I want to take a step back and talk about how you got to this point. Let's hear a bit of your origin story. How did you get into the solar business in the first place?
Well, I grew up in Missouri. I was raised by a single mom, amazing woman, only child. We shared an apartment together. And so with dreams of grandeur, I moved to the Silicon Valley, and I worked there for nearly a decade in the B2B software space for a company called Oracle. And when I was there, I just wasn't really passionate about B2B software. I just felt like, there's got to be something more. And so I really thought about the pain in my life and where I could solve problems. And something that became very evident to me was, how could I help people like my mother? There's obviously a lot of pain. I saw my mom working 3 jobs. She's the most extraordinary woman, hardest working person I've ever met. And I said, all right, I want to start a company that could help people like I was, because it's really weird to share a bathroom with your mom from like 16 to 18.
Fair enough, yep.
And so the first company I started when I was 29 years old actually was a mortgage company. And the goal was to teach people how to get into homes and educate them on homes and how to pay the least amount you could for your mortgage payment. And so don't live in a sad apartment, but live in a home and own a home. And so that led quickly to, okay, we're really good at acquiring customers, we're good on the banking side, what else could we offer? So naturally, when someone buys a home, they need a homeowner insurance policy, and so we started to sell that. We started an insurance company, and so I quickly started an insurance company called Paramount Solar that started to sell homeowners and auto insurance to customers.
Well, that Paramount Solar was the insurance company?
No, it was called Paramount Insurance Services.
Got it.
And the name of the mortgage company was Paramount Equity Mortgage. And so one morning I woke up, lightning bolt, and I looked at my wife and I said, man, I wish I would have done it. I should have done it. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I had this crazy dream about the solar business. I think I can help people save money on their electric bill at scale. And what I'd learned at Oracle was how to do virtual sales, how to create call centers for really sophisticated, hard to sell items. We were selling $1 million software deals over the phone, which blew my mind. I couldn't believe how it could be done. I'm like, wow, if I could take this to industries where you always meet with people face to face, like the banking business or the insurance business or solar, that would be pretty revolutionary. So I called a gentleman by the name of Lyndon Rive, who's the founder of Solar City, and I said, hey, I really want to get into the solar business. Would you install the systems that I would educate customers on and sell in my call center? And he said, yeah, I would do that. So in 2013, I launched a business called Paramount Solar, and fundamentally what we would do was we would work with homeowners to save them money on the largest bills of their life, their electric bill, their homeowners and auto insurance payments, and their mortgage payment. And that was the beginning of a company called Paramount Solar.
And that was ultimately acquired by Solar City, correct?
It was. So we quickly became SolarCity's biggest partner. We were their partner for 5 years. It was a very good relationship between the two founders of SolarCity, Lyndon Rive, Pete Rive, and I, and there was a lot of chemistry there and inertia. And so right after their IPO, we had a very interesting conversation to say, what if we joined forces? Hayes, what if we bought Paramount Solar? You can keep your insurance company, you can keep your mortgage company, but come over and be the chief revenue officer of SolarCity, which I did. And fundamentally what that meant was I would manage all of sales, all of marketing for SolarCity.
Interesting. Okay, so mortgages, insurance, revolutionizing based on your experience at Oracle, brings you up to Paramount Solar and then SolarCity, a lot of steps along that journey, and then of course to LoanPal. Before we dig into LoanPal further, I want to ask you, what were some of those big lessons from SolarCity? It was the market leader for so long. I'm curious, what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, I learned that extraordinary people that are willing to give their soul for a common cause can do exceptional things. I mean, it was a great lens for me to be a public-facing C-level executive, work with other incredibly talented people. We took the business after the acquisition of Paramount Solar from a couple thousand solar systems a month to 17,000 residential solar systems a month deployed. It was about 280 megawatts a quarter. Our cost structure was like $267 per watt, and so it was a lot of work. Like, you learn that level of scale. On my team alone, I was hiring about 500 people a month. And to onboard 500 people a month, train them, it's a challenge. And so you also learned the importance of systems, technology, tools, all the things that you need to have in place in order to ensure that the homeowner has the experience they need to have, that the sales professionals have the tools they need on the tablet to make sure that they're offering the customer the right options. And then, of course, on the back end, all the engineering, procurement, construction. Remember, this is before any of the new third-party software tools that exist today existed. We had to build all this proprietary. So we had 380 software developers, 17,000 person company. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a lot of lessons that I learned as an executive leading that business.
So I've got to ask, as my journalistic duty, why was SolarCity acquired by Tesla? Since then, there's been a drop in Tesla solar installations to the point where Sunrun actually, their vertically integrated solar business surpassed Tesla's last year. I know you no longer work at SolarCity, but to the extent that you can, describe the vision that drove that acquisition and what you think's happened since then.
Well, I can definitely touch on up to the acquisition because I was there right up until the acquisition. It made a lot of sense that a leading clean energy business like Tesla would find other ways in which to help homeowners live a sustainable life, right? Like, we were working very closely with Tesla on the battery storage side. They had a really strong Powerwall solution. Clearly, in various markets like Hawaii and others, the battery just started to make a lot of sense. And so there was natural tendencies for that relationship to become much more strategic and much tighter in order to just give the homeowner what they want. I mean, to me, we were getting in front of the inevitable. You're in a situation to where people can argue when everyone will drive an electric car, but not if. And so we knew that over time, that transition would take place. And it was kind of the same thing with solar. We were in a situation to where we're like, okay, we know people want to live a sustainable life. We know the same people that are going to buy a Model 3 are going to want to put solar on their home. So it was, it made a lot of sense that that Tesla would be very interested in rolling up the solar business.
And do you think, can you comment at all on, why you think maybe installations have declined since then?
It's tough. Honestly, I only know what I read. I haven't worked there for 2.5 years. I don't play armchair quarterback. I know how hard it is to operate and run these businesses. Tesla's done a phenomenal job with the Model 3 and really scaling that piece of the business up. I think it's clearly one of the best cars in the history of the world. They're a phenomenal products company. They're also focused on their solar roof product that I think will be very disruptive for the marketplace. But it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on why their volume has dropped off. I'm just not close enough to it anymore.
Thanks for taking that on, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's catch up to today. Where did the idea to launch LoanPal come from?
Well, when I was at SolarCity, it was clear to me that large-scale contractors like us needed a better financing solution with technology that would integrate with our point of sale systems. When we went to the marketplace, we were very interested in making a transition from the lease and PPA world to the loan world, and we needed partners that would not only secure the right capital on the capital market side from an underwriting criteria, so that homes that weren't solar ready yet could incorporate those main panel upgrades, the re-roofs, the rafter upgrades, all the things we're very familiar with. But in addition to that, really understood the conversation either over the phone, in a call center, or at the kitchen table. What does that contractor need in order to educate the homeowner on what their options are? And so I didn't see solutions like that. There was no one in the marketplace that had done it. We were the industry leader. We had nearly 40% market share for residential solar in the United States. And so the idea was...
That was at Solar City, you mean?
At Solar
Okay,
City.
yeah.
And so the idea was strictly that, okay, I think I can provide a better tool and more frictionless financing for homeowners to have zero down financing, and all contractors kind of help the entire market just with one company be a part of the ecosystem to providing really simple financing solutions.
And so I know there's a story there of how you kind of went back and rejoined your mortgage business and brought that to the people involved there. Tell us how you connected the dots, because it relates back to your beginning story.
Yeah, thank you. So the mortgage business has been around for 16 years. I founded that company with my two best friends, my best friend from the 4th grade and my other best friend from my freshman year of business school at the University of Missouri. And so it had a great banking track record. It banked $27 billion. It had a strong balance sheet. We had great relationships with banks. And so that was a natural platform for me to come back to and say, okay, let's use that infrastructure, the 50-state licensing, the relationships we have with Fannie and Freddie and all these other credible organizations in order to bring something to the table for the solar industry. And so that's what I did. I went back, and many people that have worked with me for the better part of 15 years said, this is a really great idea, Hayes. Let's invest in that technology. And so I left Solar City in late 2016. In 2017, I spent the whole year in San Francisco just building technology, really focused on making sure we got it right. And then in January 2018, we launched LoanPal. I think we did maybe like 20 loans in January. And then fast forward today, 15, 16 months, we do over 4,000 loans a month right now.
So let's talk a bit more about the exact offering that you have. It's a unique way that you pair a solar loan with a home mortgage and sort of wrap those up together. Talk about what that offering is all about.
Well, 10 years ago, I tried it where I would just use a mortgage to finance solar. I thought that would be a good idea. And what I realized was it's an onerous process, it's a lot of paperwork, homeowners aren't up for it, and definitely contractors aren't up for it. So that didn't work. And so as I reflected on it, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to provide a simple frictionless loan up to $100,000 where I can incorporate these items that need to get solar ready. Because something that a lot of people don't understand is the amount of people that get disqualified, the amount of people that are just told no. It's not a demand issue, it's a no issue. And I'm like, if we just find a way to say yes and educate the banks on the capital market side, we're gonna be in a really good shape on how we design this technology and what we do. And so at the end of the day, I think it's gravity. All these consumer finance loans will exist in the first mortgage at some point. No one has a kitchen countertop loan for the next 20 years. No one has a loan for their plumbing or something for the next 20 years. It gets rolled into the first mortgage, whether the homeowner moves, whether it's a situation where the homeowner refinances and wants to consolidate their debt. So I knew, okay, it's only a matter of time, but I need to create a simple platform with tech and financing so the contractor is comfortable with, okay, great, 3 seconds, approved, here's your monthly payment, I can get to work, I can do the project. Customer feels comfortable with that, it's name, address, last 4 digits of social, approved, done. Then, after the system's installed, you can have an educated conversation with the homeowner to say, do you plan on keeping this loan for the next 20 years, or would you like to roll it into your first mortgage? Fundamentally, at the end of the day, your most efficient, lowest cost of capital for the homeowner is always going to be in the mortgage. If you look at all the home improvement items or smart home solutions that are put into these homes, a big portion of the market are about 20% of the market in home improvement are these loans that people do. They call them no-nos, no interest, no payment, and then there's a larger interest rate after that 12-month term where there's no interest, no payment. It's a problem in the space, and I think that homeowners are shocked, like, wait, okay, hold on, now I'm going to a 13% interest rate, And so if you can get in front of that and you can say, look, let's roll that loan into your first mortgage at 4.5%, and let's make sure that payment is tax deductible, not just for solar, but for all home improvement items, it makes a lot of sense. Contractor wins, they get simple, frictionless, zero down financing right away. Homeowner wins, they immediately can assess savings, what the monthly payment is, what their interest rate is. Banks are happy because they have flow of capital, and then the banks are very happy when you take that loan, that $30,000 loan for solar, and then you roll it into a first mortgage. That accelerates their IRRs because of the prepayments and the way the math works. So it's kind of a win for the banks, win for the partners, and it's also a win for the customers on the front end without a lot of pain.
Got it. Okay, so clearly a lot of pieces there. So just unpacking it a little bit. So the solar contractor, the solar installation company, they manage the customer relationship, correct? Like they are going and installing solar however they would. You are just a financing option at the outset, correct?
Absolutely, and that's very important. You know, when we were doing 17,000 solar systems a month, I wasn't going to send my customers to a third-party website to get financing or to Wells Fargo. That doesn't make sense. I'm in the middle of a customer cycle. I have to make sure that I maintain control of the customer. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. That financing experience has to exist inside of my systems, my CRM, my point of sale, and so we write the technology to integrate right into the solar contractor's point of sale systems and CRM. That way they maintain complete control. We're in the background like Square. They see the LoanPal logo, but it's inside of their own solar operating system.
So the customer is not looking to LoanPal directly, at least not at the outset as a solar customer, but then eventually you would be interacting directly if they go the mortgage route, is that right?
Yes, so what we do is we do that very simple loan up front. Contractor gets their money, they're happy, they can immediately see their working capital and when their capital is coming in for the project. That loan is completed, that loan's funded. We now have a servicing relationship with that customer, with LoanPal. And then usually right around the time of PTO, we'll reach out to the customer and then it's our welcome call and say, hey, Julia, are you interested in keeping this $30,000 loan for the next 20 years? Or would you like to talk to one of our loan officers about rolling this into your first mortgage? And here are the positives of doing so.
And so what about the bank piece? How did you get banks going for this? And why hasn't this been done before? You touched on that a little bit, but I guess first the banks. Why do they like this in more detail?
Well, I think the banks are getting comfortable with the asset class. It's been a decade of meaningful volume now. We've got a couple million solar systems in the United States now. And so the key is data, always for banks. I mean, these are big institutional players like Goldman Sachs. So you have to have an investor portal that they can log into real time. They can see their internal rate of returns. They can see what potential default or delinquency rates exist and make educated decisions on how much incremental capital they want to invest into the category. And so the goal is not only to show them these are predictable, reliable assets, they're going to perform as such, letting them see it real time, all the time inside of that investor portal, and then having more educated discussions with them about other products and other areas of the category they can continue to finance.
And just go over again why this didn't happen before, why has no one done this up till now?
I think that it is challenging for a newer industry. I mean, solar is still relatively infantile to be able to show scale to the marketplace, right? The market's still very fragmented. And in the early stages, it was tax equity. That's why Solar City and Vivint and Sunrun were so successful. It was this very sophisticated structured finance solution that was about 90% of the marketplace. And so, really bright people went out and raised tax equity, and they did have that data and that information for those partners. The loan market is just starting to kind of catch wind. And in my mind, it's not about loan versus lease. I want to make that really clear. It's kind of like, the car industry has been around for 200 years. Some people are going to rent, some people are going to buy, some people want to do a lease, and some people want to Uber. And so you just have to make sure that the customer has choice. They can look at these options, and no one on the loan side has ever accumulated enough volume to where they could have those conversations with the banks at scale and let them participate in this particular asset class.
And just for sort of benchmarking here, you recently closed a $241 million securitization with Goldman Sachs earlier this year. Just touch on what that will enable you to do.
Well, Goldman's been a great partner. I mean, we have a phenomenal relationship with them. They're constantly asking, what else can we do? How can we help more people adopt solar energy? And so what's really refreshing is these banks want to participate in renewables. They want to participate in the clean energy revolution and helping say yes to homeowners. What they're saying is, look, help educate us. Why should commercial customers that are non-investment grade be able to put commercial on their buildings? And what data can you show us as to how these loans will perform? Why should we do below a 650 FICO and open up that credit window another 50 FICO points? And so these are the kind of conversations you have to have with them, with a really sophisticated capital markets team that sits down and can talk to them about the asset in order to unlock a way to say yes to so many more homeowners throughout the United States.
So I'm a child of the Great Recession. I'm a millennial. And so I also don't have a mortgage. I don't own a home. But I will tell you that all this is just kind of daunting. When I hear mortgages, it kind of freaks you out that, like, okay, are we headed to another recession? Could there be another mortgage issue? And I don't honestly know enough about it, but it is one of those things that kind of like gives me pause. So how do you make sure that something like this, especially when you're reaching out to customers that maybe have lower FICO scores, as you said, you make sure that you're giving good loans and there's not some risk involved here?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think, look, I went through the mortgage crisis. So you heard about '08 in the mortgage business. I survived. And the reason we survived and did really well in '09 was because we did responsible lending. It's that simple. We didn't do, in those days, it was a lot of reverse amortization loans and stated loans and things that got people in a lot of trouble where they had massive buybacks. I mean, the reason 90+% of mortgage companies went out of business in '09, they just physically couldn't deal with all the defaults. And so I think that, one, you have to be really responsible on how these assets are going to perform and make sure your models are accurate on what the returns are going to be for these models. Two, today, you can't do a zero down stated loan. You have to put money down. You have to show income. You have to own assets. There's more responsibility and compliance that have been put in place with TRID and other things along those lines. And then I think as it relates to the solar assets, we are launching a product right now that's opening up that credit window from 650 to 600. But we spent a year really modeling that, really looking at what we think the defaults will be. Of course, there will be a higher default rate in a lower credit window, but we factor that into the dealer fee. It's important to me that the customer gets the same interest rate, that the customer gets the same price, but if that contractor is willing to pay a little bit of a higher dealer fee to say, we want to say yes to this customer versus no, based on our data, that's about 5% of all submissions from our partners right now. And so as long as we factor that in so the banks get their return, then we're in a really safe, healthy place. And we do a significant amount of data analytics to make smart decisions on these things. And then we start by offering it to our most responsible partners in the marketplace. And then we broaden it from there as we see how the asset performs.
Great. So another kind of tough question for you, or just a question for you. Maybe it's not that tough. When we spoke earlier, we talked about rapid growth. Well, just earlier today in this conversation, we talked about how fast LoanPal is growing. Obviously, Solar City grew really, really fast. How do you make sure you're balancing sustainable, even profitable growth with capturing market share and becoming the market leader and making sure you can really do both at the same time?
Right. So I have a saying, growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. So, growth is not always great. Really what it comes down to is unit economics. You have to really understand the fundamentals of your business, understand your unit economics, and when you have that in line, you earn the right to grow. It's really that simple. It's math. And so a lot of these CEOs of companies, they want to go out and raise a lot of capital. They want to have a massive burn rate. They want to go out and gain that market share. And then they get themselves in trouble. There comes this point where it's like, oh man, I'm trying to raise my Series C and it's a down round and I'm trying to make a hard decision. For me, I'm fortunate. I haven't raised any capital for this business. I own the company. I gave a meaningful amount to the executives and other key people in the business. But, I'm really happy about the situation that we're in, that we can grow responsibly and offer a really healthy product to the marketplace without venture capital pressure or impatient capital. I'm really in a situation at 47 years old where I'm in total control, and I can make sure that I don't have to announce any products or solutions until I'm ready, and those solutions are the best solutions for the marketplace.
And as a little side note, you mentioned the executives. A lot of folks did come over from Solar City. I think Tanguy Sarah, I think I'm saying his name correctly. He was actually speaking at this event earlier, so it's interesting. A lot of familiar faces working at LoanPal.
Yeah, I think, look, some of the best people of my life I worked with at Solar City. I mean, from the sales side all the way through the software development side and process and engineering and all those things. Tanguy was the president and CFO of Solar City. He was extraordinary at his role. He was really talented, as was the two founders, Lyndon Rive and Pete Rive. And then Brendan Merkley, another gentleman who played a big role for us on the software side and process side, also works at LoanPal. So for me, look, I'm of average talent. I've got to surround myself with incredibly bright people that are really passionate about the industry. And so I'm really fortunate to work alongside some really extraordinary people that are capable of doing some things that I'm not. And I look forward to see what we can achieve together over the next decade.
So let's dig back into the loans market and loans specifically. So according to Wood Mackenzie, solar loans emerged as the dominant consumer finance product last year. At the end of 2018, solar loans claimed 45%. At the end of 2018, solar loans claimed a 45% share of the residential market, while third-party ownership fell to its lowest point since 2011. The step down in the federal investment tax credit is forecast to give third-party ownership providers an edge into the early 20s, according to Wood Mackenzie. That's because those systems still qualify for 10 to 30% tax credit, depending on whether or not providers choose to safe harbor equipment. Another stat from Wood Mackenzie, another takeaway from Wood Mackenzie is that this is likely to foster increasing competition in the solar loan market as solar loan structures simplify, and they say as commercial banks get in the game. At the same time, the growing solar loan industry is characterized by very thin margins. Woodmac also notes that lenders generally felt the pressure to raise prices incrementally last year, with some eliminating low-interest products or raising dealer fees. So with that context, what is your outlook on the loan market? Are you concerned at all about the shifts coming down the pike?
There's a lot there. So ITC, let's go ITC first. I think that we all have a role to play, everybody in the solar ecosystem, from the engineering, procurement, construction companies, to the sales organizations, to the people that are designing software. We have to find ways to lower the monthly payment for the homeowner, period. We're getting better. We've gotten a lot better over the past 10 years, and I think there's still a lot of room for us over the next 10 years. And so one of the products we're launching right now is a 25-year product. And the reason we're launching a 25-year product from a 15 or a 20, it's simple math. The monthly payment for the homeowner is less. And so, our goal is to deliver that to our leading partners right now, get the banks educated on why that product will perform, and then that will help. But everyone has to play their role in looking at their cost stack and saying, hey, how do we lower customer acquisition? How do we make sure that we design software that makes a CAD, take 3 minutes versus 3 days, and all the things that a lot of really smart, bright people that are passionate about the category like you and I are doing. And so I'm optimistic long term that we will be successful and the adoption rate of solar will continue to increase. So let's talk about data on that because you brought it up. So Wood Mackenzie's data, forgive me, I don't read this stuff all the time. It's a tough one, but I think there's somewhere around 2 million people in the United States that have gone solar. If you look at that, it's really interesting. Like the last 3 years, there's 1 million. So half of them have gone solar in the last 3 years. Then you can look at that data and you're like, well, what's the forecast for the next 3 years? Well, good news, it's another 1 million homes that will be deployed with solar. Well, what about the next 2 years after that? Well, it's another 1 million homes. So I think the last time I looked at the data, in the next 4 years, there's another 2 million homes that go solar. And so you go, where? Well, the first 2 million, if you look at it, it's almost half of it is California, roughly, a little less. I think it's like 47% is California if you look at blended. The first 1 million, it was half, and then the second 1 million, it was like 47%. So now states like Illinois that only have 4,000 residential solar systems are going to move to renewables, are going to move to solar. It takes a little while for the middle of the United States to figure out what crazy Californians are doing. And so they'll do probably 100,000 plus over the next four or 5 years. And so clearly to me, I really want to make this clear, is like, I see a lot of familiar faces that have been in this industry with me for the past decade, and we've done it. Like, we've moved the needle, you guys. We've really got the flywheel going. It was hard. We had headwinds. We faced all the challenges with net metering. We faced a lot of policy challenges. We've all been warriors in this thing for a decade. Now that flywheel has started, and yes, you, as a millennial, you haven't bought your home yet, but when you do, I'm going to guess there's a 100% chance that it's going to be some form of a smart home where you're focused on lowering your carbon footprint and you're going to eat Beyond Meat a lot. And so...
Already do.
Right? And so that's it. Like, people want to live a sustainable life. We need to stay strong. We need to look at how we get smarter, how we get better, how we get more efficient. Each of us have a role to play. And I'm very optimistic that the consumer, as long as we give them choices, I'm not too caught up on 50% of the houses in the United States go with a loan now over a lease or a PPA. They're just options. Clearly, there are people that want to own a solar system and take advantage of the ITC tax credit. Great. For those people, we have a solution. There are others that would prefer a lease or a PPA and someone to handle the O&M and all the things associated with that system. Great. We have a solution for them too. The goal is to just work together as a team to provide the solutions, because this climate change thing is real. I'd love to say we have lots of time. The reality is we don't. Really bright people have come to the industry. We've got to go hard, and we've got to make sure that we deliver these solutions at scale.
That was a great rallying cry. And I'm going to follow up with a specific question. So I mentioned in my description there that, or I mentioned in that update, what am I trying to say? I mentioned in that preamble that there are commercial banks getting into the game. So what do you think about that specifically, and competition heating up in the loan sector?
I think it's great. I welcome any company that has resources that wants to make an effort to address climate change. The more, the merrier. I hope the big banks get on board and start to want to deploy capital in the category. Like, it's always driven me crazy that you have all these commercial building owners that are non-investment grade, that are not Walmart, that are not Amazon, that don't have the right to put solar on their building. Like, that makes no sense to me. These are really good assets in really great neighborhoods where clearly whoever owns the building is going to want to pay less for electricity, period. So if the big banks get on board and say, hey, we want to understand the asset class, we want to deploy capital into the marketplace, I think it's really great. I think that anything I can do to support those big banks and help them understand it and look at our analytics and participate, that's where I am at this stage in life. Like, in the beginning, in the early years, there was a lot of dialogue about let's compete. It was like solar against the utilities. I didn't like it at all. And then it was, okay, well, now let's compete this solar company against that solar company. I'm like, look, I really want Sunrun to be successful. I want Vivint to be successful. I want Tesla to be incredibly successful. I want Blue Raven to be successful. All these awesome CEOs and passionate people that are doing the right things for the right reasons. I just want to find a way to help them, deliver the solutions at scale and grow their businesses. And so we definitely need the big banks of this country to get on board and want to finance renewables. And so I think more competition and more choice for consumer is a really great thing.
And you mentioned those other companies, the solar companies, and how many of them are you currently working with now on your platform?
Like 145. We turned down about 1,400 companies that contacted us that wanted to get on our platform right away. And only because I really wanted to test the technology with some of the larger players in the space to ensure that it was right. Because I knew if I could get it right for the big players, then I knew I could bring on some of those smaller players down the road and help them get it right. So we collaborated very tightly with the software development teams of the larger solar companies in the country to make sure we designed all our workflows the right way, everything that they needed, listened, very collaborative space. You own the customer. We're just going to finance this on your platforms. And now we're at a stage where we're slowly looking downstream to onboard new partners and say, hey, I want a sub 655 FICO product. I want a standalone battery product for 10 years because I want to go back to my customer base. And so the goal is to work our way downstream in a really responsible way. But today, we have about 140 partners on the platform.
And take a second just to describe what the platform is. You're fundamentally a fintech company. How did you build it? What does it offer?
Yeah, the simplest way to explain it is there's like three really important components of the tech stack. You have the front-end underwriting component that allows you to make an instantaneous underwriting decision for the consumer right off a sales professional's platform. So that's obvious. Everybody understands what that is and how that works. But the amount of keystrokes is very, very key. We obsessed about how do we make it as simple as possible for the customer and for the contractor at the home or over the phone. The next piece was important, which is a partner portal. A lot of these other companies' mindset was, no, we're going to design tech and software and financing for the homeowner, but they forgot about the contractor. And I was in a good position where I had, call it 6,000 residential solar salespeople that work for me. I really understood their needs. I listened, and I designed technology for them for the better part of 8 years. And so I listened and I built the technology in a way with our team that integrates directly with their ERP systems, with their CRM systems, where they can see their cash. I mean, cash flow is a really important thing in this business. They can see their working capital, when they're getting their money, at what stage in which the capital's coming in. So that's the middle section of the tech, which is a partner portal. And then the back end is an investor portal where the banks need to get very comfortable giving you hundreds of millions of dollars a year, right? You want to get as many banks as possible to participate in that ecosystem. And to do that, they need to log in real time. They need to see their internal rate of returns real time. They need to be able to ask really good questions about potential defaults or delinquencies in the marketplace, and then determine what other capital they want to put into the platform. And so really those are the three legs to the stool and how we get, win for the banks, win for the partners, and win for the customer.
So where's this heading? You are obviously doing solar loans. You talked briefly about the fact that a lot of homes just aren't solar ready, which leads to giving loans for other kinds of home upgrades. And then what beyond that? Are we talking storage? Are we talking other kinds of home improvement? What is the full offering you want to get to?
So homeowners will adopt many more smart home solutions in their home other than solar. We started there. It was kind of lead edge of the plow because it made a lot of sense. Now you're starting to hear people talk a lot about battery storage, why battery storage makes sense on the home. Well, what's happened in the space is that these sophisticated companies that have led the way in solar are now smart. They're like, hey, we own the customer. We have a great relationship with the customer. Wow, the customer's asking us questions we haven't heard before. They're asking me about their water bill and how they can install grass turf at the home to reduce their footprint there. They're asking me about this new roofing product that does it make sense for them to put on their house, or this thermostat, all the smart home solutions that we're familiar with. So I think that the right answer is pretty obvious, is that people are going to convert their sad, outdated home into an energy-efficient smart home, and they're going to want a financing player that can bundle it all into a single loan and do it very easily for them. And so that's our goal. And so we will.
I can't believe you called my Venice Beach shack sad.
But we will do.
I don't even have central air, but it's not sad. No, I'm kidding. I hear what you're saying, though.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of products out there. Like the solar business is $8 billion market. Let's look at the roofing market. I think the roofing market is somewhere around like a $50-60 billion market, right? You've got huge companies that dominate that marketplace, like GAF, that's stepping into the solar marketplace now and really being thoughtful about their new GAF energy product. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, every home in California, I think starting after 2020, has to have solar on their roof. It's mandatory. So the roofers are going to get into this, and that's a big, big business. Same thing with Andersen Windows and other major players that have their energy-efficient windows, and all the HVAC players that have these energy-efficient HVAC solutions. There's a lot of really positive product innovation that's taking place in the marketplace. The challenge is you're dealing with an older industry of home improvement, where when that person shows up at your house to put that roof on your house, they're usually not on a tablet. They're still on pen and paper. They kind of draw up a quick invoice for you on what it's going to cost. There's really no financing for that industry still, so almost everyone pays cash. You kind of look at it and you go, well, I'm going to guess 5-6 years. Most roofers have a tablet experience. Most of the roofs will have some kind of solar incorporated into it. We've got to pull that industry along. It's a $50 billion industry versus the solar industry that's an $8 billion industry, and look at all these other products in the home. Total home improvement is a $350 billion marketplace, and almost all those products are going to be energy efficient smart home products. So I want to be a world positive bank, super focused on helping them convert their home to an energy efficient smart home in the simplest, easiest way possible.
So we're talking well beyond solar here. So are you just financing solar today? Do you do roofs currently?
We do more than solar today. We are just about to step into roofs right now. We do a number of thermostats for people that want to incorporate that. There are other players that we're actively having conversations with that are large-scale players that you would know to talk through how we finance their solutions for them as well. So I think like late Q3, Q4, you'll start to hear some announcements about other products and solutions that we're going to finance at scale. Right now, we're really just trying to have intimate discussions with some of the biggest players in the country on how they want it done, and just listen. Right? It's their way. How do you guys work? What do you need? We want to design the technology custom for you. And then if you can get it right for the bigger players, you find that those best practices are applied through some of the smaller players in the industry, and they want it the same way.
Why even go solar first and be sort of, offering solar as one of your first products? You had a mortgage company. You could have just gone back and worked through the mortgage system, maybe still offered loans in another way. Why is solar even a part of this?
So I'm really passionate about it, as you can tell. I'm very passionate about clean energy and solar. I think that I'm going to stay in solar for the rest of my life, I would say. And my goal is I know all the people that have been told no. I looked at all the the disqualifications. And so when you look at all those disqualifications on, wow, we told this person no, this person no, this person no, you can't help but think, okay, they want to go solar. There's got to be a way that we can help them go solar, but really what you have to do is you've got to unlock the institutional capital in a very, very sophisticated way. It isn't going to them with like a big story and a lot of passion. It's all about data. It's massive amounts of data, and once they understand the data, they can get comfortable with the asset class, and then all of a sudden you can let these other places go solar. So it really is demand. I'm an entrepreneur, so it's demand. But look, I want to do good while doing well, and I want to play my role in helping humanity as much as I can.
I hear that. We're going to get into Give Power in a moment, which is a nonprofit you work with. But I first wanted to ask, just following up on a vision you kind of laid out of roofing companies and then solar getting involved, are we reaching a point where solar is totally just a commodity? Your hot water heater installer throws some solar on there. What does this look like in terms of a true commoditization of solar perspective?
No, I don't think so. I think that in general, people will say, well, who's going to own the smart home? Is it going to be Amazon? Or, I'm like, well, I think the homeowner is going to own the smart home. I think that there's a lot of companies that are innovating from a software standpoint, from a product standpoint, that they have some really, really compelling pieces of technology, right? You're seeing so many step function leaps right now on the battery storage side. And so I think that certain companies will differentiate themselves from a product perspective. Other companies will differentiate themselves from scale and having a big brand. Clearly, there are customers that will be very comfortable with working with the big company, the number one, the number two, the scale that brings to the table and the comfort. Other people go, no, I want to work with my local contractor. And the local contractors are not just going to be out selling and installing HVAC. They've said, well, wait a minute, solar's more mature now. I can buy third-party software. I can get financing. This doesn't seem like it's that heavy of a lift anymore. Maybe I want to now have that conversation with the homeowner. Because remember, the homeowner's driving everything. They're saying to the HVAC person, hey, can you also help me with, and can you also help me with? And they're thinking, oh, I need to get into that business. Clearly, that's it. So I think in general, you will see more dealers/contractors get into the solar space and be more comfortable offering the asset class to the market.
But no Amazon taking over the solar industry. We do talk about that, of who would own the home, and if Amazon gets involved, or Google, as some people have guessed, they could just offer a full suite of technology solutions and rule them all.
Yeah, I think this is a complex item. Those of you that have sold the product, that have you realize the complexity of it, the amount of questions. Amazon is phenomenal at selling really simple items that you understand on their platform. They're the best in the world at it, right? I get 10 packages of Amazon a day at my home, and I know many of you do too. And so my wife and my kids love Amazon. They're not necessarily going to buy a solar system off Amazon right away or a new battery product off there and have to get that installed. I think those are very consultative, complex items that you want to understand, and you need people that are going to get on the phone with you or come to your home and meet with you, that look at your house and help you understand what they do. And so I don't think Amazon owns the smart home anytime soon. I think they'll play a very important role in it, but other companies that I've mentioned here are doing a great job of it. There's a company, Spire Energy, that's looking at really creative ways in which they can help you reduce your energy footprint, and a variety of other players that they're going to be really needed to come to the house and have a good discussion with you.
Yeah, we covered Inspire on Greentech Media. They're doing an interesting thing with a all-you-can-eat kind of subscription-based energy plan where there's a bunch of smart home technology packed in there. So just a little plug for my story.
No, Patrick Maloney, the CEO, he's an extraordinary guy. He's got a really strong board, and I respect him a lot. He's going to go for it. He's going to find a way to educate homeowners on ways in which they can reduce their electricity bill, which I admire.
So take a step back, you've been in the solar industry for a long time. You talked about reaching the 2 millionth solar system in the US. That is sort of the latest stat that Wood Mackenzie put out and the Solar Energy Industries Association. What do you think gets us to the next level? What makes solar truly mainstream? We've talked about different kinds of financing, obviously relationships with customers. What is your big takeaway on how this really, hits it out of the park?
I think it's what you touched on. I think the more we can get the banks comfortable with the asset class. Remember, at the end of the day, it's kind of a cost of capital issue. And if we can drive that cost of capital down with really reliable, predictable returns, it opens this up for so many people that haven't been able to go solar yet. And so that's my mission. If I can have conversations with the banks and say, look, we should open it up to this, it just makes sense to me. If there's a really nice building in LA that's a clean, flat roof, it's a phenomenal asset, do we really care who owns the building? Because whoever owns it is just going to want to pay less for electricity. So I want to do that non-investment grade solar system on that building and let that property owner go solar. Remember, for 10 years, he or she has wanted to go solar and been told no, there's no financing for the asset class. And so PACE is making an effort there and other things, but I think we need more solutions and more options for that hotelier, for that restaurant owner, for the building owners to all be able to go solar.
And finally, in our last minute, I want to wrap up with the story of Give Power. I mentioned it's a nonprofit. They build solar projects and provide clean water to communities all over the world. What is Give Power?
Yeah, so this is a foundation that I started at Solar City in 2013. So I was in 2008 during the financial crisis that you recommended. That was a tough time. It was a tough time for me. I only kind of knew one way in my life. They say you're never a real CEO until you go through a near-death experience. Well, I went through mine. And so I took my executive team to Mali, Africa, and I built a school. And when I was in Mali, Africa with my executive team laying in the dirt building the school, it was really obvious to me that, hey, the school is great, but what the school needs is electricity. Because what will really make you sad is the women are fetching water in the morning and they're not in the classroom. And so it was really eye-opening to me when I met with the chief and the translators. I'm like, okay, I've got to figure this out. I've got a solar company. Maybe I could put solar on these schools. And so we were going to put solar on a school in Nicaragua. This is right about the time Lyndon and the Solar City team were buying our business. And I said, well, I'm really passionate about this effort to put solar on 500 schools. I have an idea. Lyndon and I were in the hot tub at his house. And I said, what if for every megawatt we deploy at Solar City, we put solar on a school? And he goes, man, I love it. I think that's great. And I said, good. And so that was the beginning of Give Power. We launched the foundation in December 2013. And I'm really happy to say, let's just fast forward now, because that was many years ago. We've put solar on 2,650 schools in 17 countries. That's been great. We've built microgrids all throughout the world as well, where we'll power chicken incubators and rice mills. And then I got into water. Like 2 years ago, we had this big idea where we could build a solar water farm And a solar water farm is a 50 kilowatt solar array with 90 kilowatts of Tesla Powerwalls, and we can put it in a container, and we can ship it anywhere in the world. And so the solar water farm produces 70,000 liters of water a day. It's the most affordable, healthy, sustainable water in the world. And so we put this first container in a little village on the Somali border up in Kenya called Kayunga. And I'm really happy to say that that system produces about 55,000 liters a day in offtake still. Everyone's like, hey man, what's the spaceship doing in the village? You know, this is a little bit crazy. But I'm really passionate about it. We're shipping our second system to Haiti next month. A couple months after that, we'll do one in a little bordering town in Mombasa in Kenya. But if you think about it, like it's actually, you know, if you care about water and scarcity, and a lot of people in this room are very energy conscious and very environmental conscious. Water is a huge issue. Every 90 seconds, a child dies from a waterborne disease. In places like Haiti, I think 1 in every 13 children die by their 5th birthday. This stuff like blows your mind, and you're like, man, what can we do? And so net is we are building solar water farms. It's desalinization using reverse osmosis. We pull the water out of the ocean, and then we produce water at scale for these people, and it's really cool to see what people do when they see water. So that's Give Power in a nutshell.
All right. I had a chance to go to Haiti once, and it was amazing how refrigeration just totally changed everyone's livelihoods. They could actually store food instead of salting their fish and things like that, something that, you know, we take refrigeration for granted. So it's a really interesting issue, and interesting to see people working on it and innovating around it. Well, I think that is the story. That is your story. I appreciate you taking the time to tell it. It sounds like it started with a dream. I think that's what you said. You told your wife it was a dream, and then all of this unfolded from it. And
yeah, I have crazy. My wife and 3 kids would laugh at me right now, but yeah, I have like little visions of things that I should have done, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go do it now, actually. So we all have reasons we get into doing things, but I'm like, you know, talk to me. I like to meditate in the mornings. I'm really weird, and I just kind of listen. And then when people, you know, when things happen and say, hey, you should put your time and energy into this, for me, like, I need something to get out of bed every day. And for me, like, my impact and helping others is what kind of drives me. People, well, what's success to you? I'm like, oh, you know, how many people can I help? And so between Give Power or LoanPal, this is like the things that drive me. And, you know, as soon as I find something else where I feel like I can help more people, maybe I'll do that. But right now, this is working out okay.
Great. We'll leave it there. Thanks so much, Hayes.
All right. Thank you, Julia. Appreciate it.
Okay.
A-rated with the Better Business Bureau, I think everywhere. And 82 is tough. Recognize that we do, oh man, between the mortgage business and the consumer finance business, call it 4,500 transactions a month. So it's 4,500 customers every single month. I think by the end of the year, that will probably scale to somewhere around 8,000 or something along those lines. And so the key is, for any business, you really, really have to manage quality, and you have to eliminate bad actors in your business. Like, a lot of people have, tolerance policies for people that either treat customers poorly and or, make bad decisions. I kind of have a no tolerance policy for this. I'm really hard-nosed about, people need to treat our customers the right way. Everything we do needs to be incredibly of high integrity and ethics. And so any business is going to have some amount of complaints. I don't like 82 as much as anyone does. My CMO is in the back right now, but you manage to them. You follow up with those customers immediately. When that customer is unhappy, I always tell my team this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to completely blow their mind, go out of our way to make them happy, and ensure that we don't sacrifice quality for scale.
Next one, how do you ensure that your partners aren't rolling the additional fees into subprime loan offerings?
Rolling additional fees into subprime loan offerings. How do you make sure your partners are not rolling subprime fees? Well, I don't know if they're talking about the mortgage business. So on the mortgage business, we don't charge any fees. That's one of the things. The only fees that are in the mortgage business are for the title, the escrow, third-party fees, appraisal. So one of my philosophies, if you see on the mortgage side, is I don't believe in fees. I think it's like a bunch of made-up stuff. Like, oh, there's a processing fee, there's an underwriting fee, there's some other made-up fee that they put on the GFE. And so the approach I've taken is I just don't want to charge fees. It's a rate, it's an APR, and consumer, you can make an educated decision. Shop, if you find a better one, great, but I don't believe in fees at all on the mortgage side. And then on the consumer finance side, there are no fees either. So I hear the question, which is, hey, a lot of companies are going to make erroneous fees up and manipulate consumers and be deceptive. I'm really, really vehemently against that. I don't like made-up fees on GFEs so people can make additional margin. Just be very straightforward on what the rate is, and then they can make an educated decision on that monthly payment.
Great. One or two more here. Why would someone want to go through the hassle of a refinance when most solar loans are only, let's say, 4 to 5%? Auto payments aren't that painful, and homeowners are already used to that for their credit cards, et cetera.
Yeah, great question. So they don't, is the answer. And so I tried that. I tried to get them to do a refinance up front to do solar, and that went over like a lead balloon. It made no sense at all. And so I totally agree with the question, which is you have to offer a consumer finance loan that's really frictionless and easy, no paperwork, no income, no assets, no divorce decree, all the things that you have to provide during a mortgage. You offer that loan. Now that consumer gets solar on their house, battery storage, whatever smart home upgrade that they want. Then later in the process, if the customer is willing to go through and provide the additional documentation, that at that point they can make an educated decision. If you look at it, about, I would say, 25% of the customers, when we call them right after the system is installed, say, yeah, we'd like to talk to someone and see if we potentially want to roll it in. And then once they're having a conversation with the loan officer, like you think, that professional says, well, here are the things you need to do in order to do a refinance with us. And then some of the customers are like, sounds like a lot of work. I'm out. I'll just keep my loan. Others are, hey, you know what? I really don't want the $30,000 loan. I'd really be interested in rolling this in. And oh, by the way, are there some other debts and other things that I could roll in at the same time? And the answer to that question is yes. So it kind of determines what the individual situation is. But at the end of the day, I do believe that all of these consumer finance loans will exist in the first mortgage at some point in time. It just comes down to when the consumer actually wants to do the work to make that happen.
And I guess last question here. So we did touch on fees, but I'll put it to you anyway. So LoanPal offers a 30% dealer fee on a loan product for customers below 650 FICO. Is that right?
I don't know what the dealer fee is. I apologize. If someone calls our team, they will tell you immediately what it is. I just don't know the rate and the term of that product. And the only reason I don't know is we just rolled it out this week. So that's a product that just call us and ask us, and we'll be happy to tell you what it is. We don't play games. We'll give everyone the same price. And so this one is something I'm excited about. When we were at Solar City, we took it from 700 to 650. It made a very big difference in the marketplace. There was a lot more people that had the ability to go solar. The dealer fee for the 650 FICO or 600 to 650 FICO product is higher than the dealer fee for our other products. And here's my insight on that. It's really important. So I did not want to charge someone that has a lower FICO a higher interest rate and a higher payment. I didn't think that was right. I want to say no, solar's for everyone. It's really important to me that whether you have a 600 FICO or an 800 FICO, it's the same price. The question then becomes, well, great, how do you factor in a higher default rate? Naturally. Well, the way you factor in a higher default rate is by giving that dealer fee to the solar company, and then they can make a decision whether or not they want to offer the product. But I don't like, oh yeah, we're going to make people that have a lower FICO pay a higher interest rate. That doesn't sit well with me.
And we'll leave it there. Heading into a network break. Thank you so much, Hayes, for being here. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Julia. I appreciate it.